Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mailbag, the all-mailbag show here on AMC Movie News, where all we do is take your mailbag questions. My name is John Campea. I am the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. Look, we got a whole bunch of things we're going to cover. Like the title of the show suggests, all we're going to do is take your mailbag questions, and if you are somebody who you'd like to have your mailbag question on AMC Movie Talk sometime, you can email us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Just email on in your questions, and maybe you'll see your question on AMC Movie Talk one of these days, or on AMC Mailbag here on the weekends. Now, as I said, we generally just kind of take your mailbag questions on the show, but today's show is a little late getting up, and one of the reasons it's a little late getting up is because the new Furious 7 trailer, Fast and the Furious 7, titled Furious 7, was coming online today, and I wanted to wait until I had a chance to see it so I can give my thoughts on it. And it's online now. You can see the trailer. Just go to YouTube and search for a Furious 7 trailer. It's online now. And it's not just a little teaser. It's actually like a full-fledged, full-blown trailer. And I gotta tell you, holy crap, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I wasn't sure what to expect from the trailer. I wasn't sure if I was going to be taken out of it, because I know about, like all of us, I know about the tragedy of Paul Walker. So I didn't know if that was going to take me out of the trailer, if every time Paul Walker was on screen it would take me out of it. Or worse, I was a little bit afraid that Universal and the filmmakers might capitalize on the tragedy of Paul Walker by making some really sentimental trailer focusing around Paul Walker. I mean, in some ways that I could see why they might have, but I don't think that would have been best for the memory of Paul Walker. I don't think it would have been best for the movie itself. And I think it would have been, kind of insulting to us as the fans. But I watched this trailer, and it's just spectacular. The whole first bit of the trailer is just them pulling off that bus heist, which was breathtaking. I can't wait to see that, that full sequence and scene, the way it's shot. It's totally ridiculous, but made to feel realistic. That is something the Fast and the Furious films have been doing really well over the past couple of films, specifically in 5 and 6, is that they are doing absolutely unrealistic, completely ridiculous things, yet doing them in such a way that they actually kind of feel a little bit believable. Like, oh yeah, that's how it would work. If this was going to work in the real world, this is how it would work. It introduced us to the basic plot. It introduced us to the villain. We got to see all the characters that we're all really excited to see, and it just felt right. It just felt right. It was funny. It was, that's super hilarious, but it made me smile and grin. It was really exciting. It had all the cool shots, showed all the cool cars. I got to tell you, man, bravo to Universal for putting out an absolutely appropriate yet seriously top-notch trailer to Furious 7. And if the goal of a trailer, man, is to get us more informed and more excited about an upcoming movie, this trailer completely hits it out of the park on that level. I don't think they need any more trailers. I'm the type of guy who says, yeah, put out 2 or 3 trailers, not 6, 7, or 8 trailers. Put out 2 or 3 trailers. But I'm telling you, man, this trailer is totally good enough on its own. This trailer will sell the movie. You don't need to make any more trailers about Fast and Furious. So, awesome job. Like I said, head on over to YouTube and just search Furious 7 trailer, and you should be able to see it online right now. And anyway, I'm sure we're going to talk about it a whole lot more on Monday's AMC Movie Talk. So make sure you tune in and check out the crew as they talk about it there. But for now, let's get to what this show is actually all about, which is your mailbag questions. I wanted to throw in the Fast and Furious 7 thing because number one, I knew a lot of you would ask questions, and as I look at the mailbag now, a whole ton of you guys wrote in Fast and Furious 7 questions about the trailer that dropped, so I thought, okay, this is a mailbag question because so many of you asked, boom, let's just cover it right off the top. But like I said, I'm sure the crew will talk about it more in depth this week, especially on Monday, so keep your eyes open for that. So, with that out of the way, let's now get into some actual questions that you guys have sent in, and we will start with question number 1. And the first question today comes to us from Joe Angers, who writes, in the age of reboots and remakes, it seems like Remo Williams is a movie that's ripe for franchise potential. Do you think there's room for another Super Spy franchise, or is Bourne and Bond enough? Well, thanks a lot for the question there, Joe. I don't think that because we have Bourne and because we have Bond, one film a year is nowhere near saturating, let alone oversaturating the super spy genre. I think, we only get a Bourne film like every number of years. We only get a Bond film every number of years. I honestly believe there's room for 3 to 4 super spy movies per year. I think there's room for that. When you really consider about how many movies people go to see, how every once in a while that puts out, how many overall movies come out every year, I think there is definitely room for another super spy franchise. The real question here is a franchise like Remo Williams one that should be brought back to life? And I'm going to tell you right now, Joe, you have touched a soft spot in my heart because I freaking love Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins. That movie rules. I mean, I first watched it when I was a little kid, and then I watched it again on home video much later, but it was out in the 80s. Stars Fred Ward, who, if you're, first of all, Fred Ward's great, and he's in a lot of different projects, but a lot of you may remember him from Tremors. Stars Fred Ward as Remo Williams. Wilford Brimley's in there, of course. And it's this, it's a cop who gets his death faked so he can be a part of the super, I'm simplifying it here, but who has his death faked against his will, really, and then is brought into this super secret government agency that takes out foreign threats, domestically or abroad, whatever. And one of my favorite things about Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins is this character named Chun. And Chun is this little Asian guy, although I'm not really sure how Asian the actor was or if he was just made up to look Asian. I can't 100% remember. But Chun was a Korean, martial arts master and trained in all forms of death. And his job was to train Remo Williams. And Chun is a ripoff, throwback, homage, whatever, to every stereotype of old Chinese kung fu films. He dressed like it, the whole beard, the facial hair, everything, the way he talked. And on top of that, Chun was a misogynistic, hyper-racist. He's awful in so many bloody ways. He's completely awful. And yet, when he spoke, you couldn't help but laugh hilariously. And there was something magical about that character that they set it up in just such a way that they could do it. I remember one of the things that just made me laugh because they make it so like everybody around Chun, like when he says something really misogynistic, when everybody else around Chun totally you realize how outdated and jackass-ish you sound saying that, but Chun is completely oblivious to that. He just believes everything he says is right. And there's this one scene where he's talking to, I can't remember the actress's name, but she was the captain on Star Trek Deep Space, not Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Star Trek Voyager. So the woman who played the captain in that show, she was like a military colonel or whatever in Remo Williams. And her and Chun have this conversation, and she's getting incredibly frustrated with him because he's so like sexist. He's just so incredibly sexist. And anyway, there's this one scene where she says to him like, well, what do you think I should be doing? And he says, you should stay at home having babies, preferably man-child. You have to see it to understand how this ridiculous, out-of-touch, sexist character can talk like that and make it be hilarious. Anyway, the Wilford Brimley's great in it. Fred Ward's great in it. It's fun. It's exciting. It's funny. All that kind of stuff. Now, to your question about, is this a franchise you could revitalize? Well, as a matter of fact, Universal is revitalizing it. Just a few months ago, it was announced that Shane Black, the dude who directed Iron Man 3 and, of course, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which if you haven't seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, look it up, Val Kilmer, Robert Downey Jr. Anyway, the guy who directed those, super talented dude. I really like what he did with Iron Man 3, although I know a lot of people didn't. That's cool if you don't. But they've tagged him to come and direct. It's not going to be called Remo Williams, though. It's going to be called The Destroyer. And the reason it's going to be called The Destroyer is that Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, this movie here, was actually based on a series of books called The Destroyer. And the character's name is Remo Williams, but they just named the movie Remo Williams: The Adventure Begins instead of The Destroyer. But the new movies will be called The Destroyer. It's being written, the screenplay is being written by Jim Mules. And Jim Mules is the dude who wrote the screenplay for Fight Club. So there's some pretty good pedigree there. So to answer your question, yes, I do think there's room for a revitalized Remo Williams franchise. And the good news, 3 pieces of good news is, number one, they are doing a revitalization of the Remo Williams franchise. It's going to be called The Destroyer. It's being directed by Shane Black, and it's being written by Yules, who wrote the screenplay for Fight Club. So if you're a fan of this type of stuff, this is good news all the way around. I'm really excited. You should be excited about it too, and I cannot wait. I'm going to be very curious, though, I got to say, to see how they handle the Chun character today. It's one thing to make that type of a character in the 80s. I hope they're able to do it today. It's just going to be really curious to see how they handle him. Because like I said, he's outrageously sexist and misogynistic and racist and all this kind of stuff. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how they handle that kind of character today. Because you can't do him the same way you did him in the 80s. So will they completely new to the character? Will they go really over the top with it to make it as ridiculous as possible? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Luke McGowan, who writes, I watched Big last night, and whilst I thought it was a delightfully warm film, I can't get over the creepy scene where it is heavily implied that Hanks and Perkins' characters sleep together, despite his technically being only 13 years old. Did this scene ever disturb you upon viewing, and do you agree that a film would never be able to include a scene like that in today's day? Imagine if the gender roles were reversed. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Luke, and I got to tell you guys right up front that bar none, you know how with me, favorite movies all time, the original Star Wars trilogy. That's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, Act 1, 2, and 3. No questions asked. Star Wars is it for me. That's my all-time thing. Well, bar none, Anne's favorite movie of all time is Big. Favorite movie of all time is Big. She watches it 3 to 4 times a year. She always starts jumping up and, like, I'm not kidding, she'll be sitting in her chair and couch and she'll start jumping up and down whenever she knows it's about to start, whatever. She loves Big so much. All-time favorite film of hers. And it's really a great movie. But yeah, man, I got to tell you, when I first saw the film, and when I saw it for years, that scene where it's heavily implied, it's more than implied, it happens, where the two characters sleep together, an adult woman and an adult Tom Hanks, who's actually really just a 13-year-old boy. Well, that makes the woman a pedophile. She has no idea it's a 13-year-old boy, of course. She thinks he's just a wonderful man, a wonderful, good-spirited, refreshing kind of man. She has no reason she would believe or understand that that was actually a 13-year-old kid in a man's body. So I never really thought of it in those terms. But about a year ago, I remember Big came on, we were watching, and that scene came up, and I kind of cracked a joke about it. It's like, you know, she's like a modern day high school teacher who's been caught sleeping with the students, like a 13-year-old girl, kind of creepy. But yeah, I thought it was interesting too. In your email, you wrote, you could never get away today with a scene like that, especially if the gender roles were reversed. Well, although they didn't go all the way with it, you can kind of say they almost did. I mean, with 13 going on 30 with Jennifer Garner. Although I don't believe her and her athlete celebrity boyfriend actually had sex. I don't believe her and Mark Ruffalo actually had sex. But, you know, they had romantic involvements when really it was an adult Mark Ruffalo falling in love and having romantic involvements with a 13-year-old girl. You know, so they have done it, although they didn't go far. But I got to tell you, because of the way 13 going on 30 was set up, much like the way Big was set up, if Mark Ruffalo and Jennifer Garner had physical intimacy in 13 going on 30, I got to tell you, I don't think I would have thought twice about it. I think my head would have been in the same space as it was watching Big. In a very real practical sense, like we as the audience know what's happening. But Mark Ruffalo, there's no creepiness intended here. Like he has a physical adult woman in front of him that he falls in love with and has physical intimacy with. That didn't happen in the movie, but if it did, I think it would have been the same reaction myself and a lot of people originally had with Big, in that there's the offending party, the one who's being the pedophile here, in no way, shape, or form is intending to be a pedophile and has every reason to believe they're completely acting honorably. So I think in Big, yes, absolutely, you can sit back and point your finger and make a little bit of a joke about it in Big. But honestly, I feel like the way the movie set it up was very innocent. Even though they slept together, I feel like it was set up very innocent. There is no creepy pedophile. There is no stalker. There is no somebody acting inappropriately to their knowledge at all. And I think because that was the case, it didn't feel like that as you're watching the movie, much like I don't think it would have felt that way in 13 Going on 30. But I can totally see where you're coming from. I really, really can. I'm just expressing how I believe they set up the film and structured the narrative. It kind of neutered the possibility for that of it feeling creepy to me. So that's just me, though. I'd be curious to hear. For you guys watching the show, when you watch Big, do you feel there's a creepiness factor to the scene where the two characters sleep together? Let us know in the comment section. I'd be curious to know your thoughts. Why or why not? All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from James Walsh, who writes, "Hello, AMC, and thank you for taking my question." Well, you are most welcome, James. "I was just wondering, why do you think, do you think Henry Cavill will suffer the same fate as George Reeves, Christopher Reeve, and Brandon Routh and not have a successful acting career outside of Superman?" Well, thanks a lot for the question, James. It's a fair question because honestly, when you think of Christopher Reeve, all you think about is Superman, right? That's all you think about. Now, my all-time favorite comedy is a comedy by the name of Noises Off. And it stars Christopher Reeve and Michael Caine and John Ritter and Carol Burnett and a long laundry list of superstars. It is, to me, the funniest. There's no film that's ever made me laugh more consistently and harder than Noises Off. To me, it's the funniest film of all time. My favorite comedy of all time. A second would be probably 40-Year-Old Virgin. But anyway, I digress. So when I think of Christopher Reeve, I got to admit, when I think of Christopher Reeve, I don't think of Superman. My first thought is of Noises Off, but that's because, once again, Noises Off is my all-time favorite comedy. For 99.99% of the people out there, Noises Off is not your favorite comedy, and so you just think Superman. Christopher Reeve did have a career outside of Superman. Granted, it was unremarkable compared to the grand success of Superman and what he'll always be known for, sure. George Reeves, we all know what happened there. Brandon Routh is a work in progress. Let's not throw Brandon Routh under that bus right now. I thought Brandon Routh was absolutely hilarious in something in Miri Make a Porno. I can't remember. Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I thought he was really funny in that. He was great on Chuck. Right now, he's got a new regular role on TV's Arrow, where he plays the Atom. So he's doing well there. Will he ever have another role that is iconic and as big as, say, Superman again? Probably not. But let's not write off his career at that just yet, because he's still working, right? He's still doing stuff. I'm going to say that Henry Cavill falls outside of all that kind of stuff. And the reason a guy like Cavill falls outside of all that stuff is that Henry Cavill had a career before he was Superman. And he's going to continue to have a career outside of Superman. Henry Cavill is one of these guys. A lot of people will say to me, well, John, if I ever say, for example, if I say I didn't like the Gal Gadot casting as Wonder Woman, whatever, people think I'm saying I don't like that because she's an unknown actress. And people will say, well, what about Henry Cavill, John? He was an unknown actor. Yeah, but being unknown isn't the issue. Henry Cavill, I say this a lot, Henry Cavill is an actor who may have been unknown to a lot of the audience, but he has been on the radar of agents and casting directors for years as a can't-miss A-list superstar. They're just waiting to find the right vehicle for him to launch. Remember, he was very close to getting the role in Superman Returns instead of Brandon Routh, but Brandon Routh got it. He was very close to becoming the new James Bond, instead of the guy we got right now. He was very close to a lot of things, and he had one of the lead roles in The Tudors, which was a big cult following, successful TV show. Before Man of Steel, he was in Immortals, which I thought he was very good in, even if the movie itself wasn't spectacular. I thought he was very good in Immortals. And now, even though he's already started his journey as Superman, he's got a new film coming out with Armie Hammer called The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I believe he replaced Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise was in it and then had to go to do Mission Impossible 5 or 6 or whatever the next one is. So Henry Cavill is a guy who has been pegged as a superstar long before we ever heard of him, has had a track record of some decent success before he was Superman, and he's doing more films as he's being Superman. So do I think the same thing will happen to him as the other Superman actors, where when we think of them, all we think of is Superman? Well, because Superman is such a big iconic character, I think even with a Henry Cavill, Superman will be the primary thing we think about when we think about Henry Cavill. But he's already got enough on his resume now and will continue to add big list stuff to his name later that he won't fall into that category of that's all we think about when we think of Henry Cavill. We won't only think about Superman because he will have a lot of other stuff on his resume as well. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Taylor Houston, who writes, "Hey AMC, do you believe that Furious 7 should be the final installment to the Fast and Furious series?" Well, thanks a lot for the question, Taylor. And, this kind of goes on the fact that today the new Furious 7 trailer dropped. We talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the show. But, a lot of people are asking that question. Should this be the last one? And they're asking it for different reasons. I believe that no, this should not be the last one. And I'm going to address all the different reasons some people are suggesting to me why it should be and tell you why I don't necessarily agree. One of the big arguments that comes out about Fast and Furious 7, aka Furious 7, is that to continue it is disrespectful to Paul Walker. And I've kind of addressed this question. A lot of these are the same people who said they should have just stopped production on Fast and Furious 7 at all. There shouldn't even be a Fast and Furious 7. Out of respect to Paul Walker, they should have just not done Furious 7. You guys have heard me address this, but it bears repeating. Is that, look, if you work at the Ford Motor Plant, and somebody, that everybody likes at the Ford Motor Plant dies, you don't shut the Ford Motor Plant down. Life goes on. Life continues. That's part of what being human, that's part of what the human experience is grieving and moving on. And I think, at Ford, if somebody that everybody loved there died, maybe they shut the plant down for a day, but then life has to continue on and you keep going. But the other thing was that Paul Walker, much like Christopher Reeve was Superman, Paul Walker will always be known. When you say Paul Walker, you're not going to think of his other films. You're going to think of his involvement in Fast and the Furious franchise, and deservedly so. If you think it's respectful to Paul Walker to kill the franchise that he spent his whole career and the vast majority of his success that his fans know and love him for, if you think it's respectful to Paul Walker to kill that franchise, I think Paul Walker would disagree with you a great deal. I think you honor Paul Walker by continuing this franchise as long as it's viable and healthy and fans want to see it. I think you honor Paul Walker by continuing it. You're not honoring him by stopping it. Paul Walker would not have wanted this franchise stopped. This franchise, he spent so many of his years alive on this earth building and promoting and contributing to. He wouldn't want you to kill it. And so I don't believe it would be honoring Paul Walker to kill it. I think it would be honoring to him to continue it. Now, then there are other people who will suggest, understandably so, that, dude, it's had 7 films now. Time to call it a day. I totally understand where you're coming from, but I'm going to respectfully disagree myself personally. The reason I don't agree with that notion is that people still want it. And look, I would have pulled the kill switch on Fast and Furious after Fast and Furious 3. I did not like any of the first 3 Fast and Furious films. I'll be frank, I thought they were all garbage. I thought the first one was nothing but a poor man's lazy ripoff of Point Break. Plot point by plot point by narrative point by narrative point. It was an exact duplicate photocopy of Point Break ripoff. Completely. I hated the first 3. But then something kind of funny happened in film number 4. I remember going in to watch Fast and Furious 4 and thinking I'm going to hate this too. And going out and going, that wasn't half bad. That was actually, Fast and Furious 4, that was actually okay. Who knew? Then Fast and Furious 5 came out. They brought in The Rock. And Fast and Furious, pardon the pun, but they put it into a whole new gear. And as of Fast and Furious 5, something magic happened. It's like it became this caterpillar that went into its cocoon in number 4, and you think, oh, there could be something special here in number 4. And then number 5, it burst forth from its cocoon in its glorious monarch butterfly splendor, flying around. Okay, so you're going to have nightmares about me doing that. Anyway, Fast and Furious 5 was spectacular and made the most money out of any of them ever made. You had The Rock on board now. It was great. Then Fast and Furious 6 came out. And you're thinking, oh, maybe they're going to start running this into the ground. And it was even better than Fast and Furious 5. Who saw that coming? I didn't see that coming. Did you see it coming? Maybe you did. I did not. So it went from this garbage franchise to this really great fun franchise. And of course, Paul Walker was a very big part of that. So was Vin Diesel, so was The Rock, and on and on and on. So there's some people saying, okay, 7 is enough time to pull the plug, but look, why do people make the movies? People make movies because they believe they can put together a story, whether it's action, excitement, horror, drama, tragedy, comedy, whatever. They think they have something they can put together that the audience wants to see, and that they think they can entertain that audience with, and that they can be, it's a business, hopefully it can make them money at the same time. You got to have all 3 of those ingredients there. If you're missing one, it's not going to work. So everybody who makes a film goes into it thinking, I've got a story here that people want to hear for whatever emotional reason. That number 2, we think we can do it well and it will engage them and entertain them. And number 3, we think it can be profitable. You know, if we make it for $1,000, we think we can make $3,000. If we make it for $20 million, we think we can make $40 million. You know, you hope the movie you're making can make money. And so let's look at all those. Number 1, does the audience want more Fast and the Furious? Well, the fact that the box office keeps going up is a clear, obvious yes. The audience still wants more Fast and Furious. Number 2, can you make it entertaining for the audience? Well, their recent track record is again, yes. They are entertaining the audience. Audiences are coming out of Fast and Furious 4 and 5 and 6, and audiences are loving it. Critics are really enjoying it. So there are the first 2. The audience wants it. You're able to give them what they want and make it good and entertaining at the same time. Well, let's look at the third one. Can it make money? The last one need either close to or over $800 million worldwide. This next one, if it's not even better, even if it's just almost as good as Fast and Furious 6, this next one will probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it'll cross the $1 billion mark worldwide. The $1 billion mark. So my 3 things. Is this something that the audience wants to see? Clearly, yes. Is it something that you can make entertaining for the audience and give it quality and you know, so that people get the experience that they're wanting? I think clearly yes. Number 3, can it make money? Clearly yes. So honestly, I see no reason, me personally, that you stop making these films. Now, if Fast and Furious 7 comes out and it's terrible and its box office takes a big dip from Fast and the Furious 6, then you step back and go, okay, maybe we've let this franchise run its course. Maybe it's time to pull the plug on it. But if it makes big money and audiences like it and they run out to see it, then I see absolutely no reason not to continue with Fast and Furious 8. So to answer your question, do I think they should stop it? No, I do not think they should. Will I think they'll stop it? No, I don't think they will. I think we're going to see Fast and Furious 8 sooner rather than later. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from PJ Yerman, who writes, Hey, MC Movie Crew. Yesterday, John and the gang talked about whether or not Ralph Fiennes would be nominated for Best Actor for the Grand Budapest Hotel this year. But what about Tom Hardy for Locke? While not my favorite movie of his, he still gave what I think is the best performance of his career and deserved to be recognized for it. Thoughts? And thanks, and bring on the filthy. Well, look, you've heard me talk about Locke. I think Locke is a spectacular performance by Tom Hardy, and I'll go on record and say I think it is his best performance. Also, I think it's even better than his performance in Bronson. I think he's just spectacular in it, and I think he really shows what he's got. When you get these one-man movie types of things, that's really where the actor has to carry it and lets their talent shine, and shine it did. But do I think he'll get nominated this year? The answer is no. And the reason it's no is because, once again, much like last year, I didn't think it was going to be as stacked as last year, and I still don't think it's as stacked as last year. But the Best Actor category this year is becoming very, very full. Very full. There's just not much room. Now, unlike the Academy Award for Best Picture, which can have anywhere between 5 and 10 nominees, the Best Actor category only has 5 spots. Only 5 performances can get nominated. And you're talking about Steve Carell in Foxcatcher. That is a lock. He is going to get one of those nomination spots. You're talking about Michael Keaton in Birdman. I'm going to tell you right now, that is a lock. He is going to get one of those spots. You're talking about Benedict Cumberbatch for not The Theory of Everything. That's Eddie Redmayne. For The Imitation Game. That is a lock. He is going to get one of those spots. You're talking about the aforementioned Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything. I'm telling you right now, that is a lock. Timothy Spall for the movie Mr. Turner. Timothy actually won its version of the Best Actor award at Cannes over Michael Keaton and Steve Carell. So Timothy Spall has to be considered a lock. That's 5 right there. Now, on top of those, a lot of people are buzzing about Miles Teller in Whiplash. A lot of people are talking about Matthew McConaughey for Interstellar. There's a number of other roles too. So you start looking at this list and you realize there's only 5 spots. Well, okay, out of Carell, Benedict Cumberbatch, Michael Keaton, Eddie Redmayne, the Timothy Spall performance, which one of those 5 performances do you knock out to make room for Tom Hardy in Locke? Or do you knock out to make room for Miles Teller in Whiplash? Who do you knock out to make room for Matthew McConaughey in Interstellar? The fact of the matter is that even though, as you say in your email, he deserves to be recognized, well, the Academy isn't about who deserves to get recognized. The Academy Awards don't hand out participation badges. And that's what makes the Academy Awards so special and so incredibly amazingly difficult to win. You can't just give an amazing world-class performance that deserves recognition. You have to do it in such a way that 5 other people don't do a little bit better. Out of the 900 films that got made that year, you have to do it in a way that was better and hope that there aren't 5 other guys that do better than you that year. And with the way that the category of Best Actors is stacking up this year, like we talked about Ralph Fiennes for Grand Budapest Hotel, I got to be honest with you, I would put Ralph Fiennes ahead of if there was a waiting list to get into those top 5 spots that we've already talked that are being occupied by Cumberbatch and Steve Carell and those other guys I mentioned. To me, the first guy in line is Ralph Fiennes, and then it would be Tom Hardy in the movie Locke. So, is there an outside shot? Yes, I believe it's an outside shot. But one of those top 5, and I believe Ralph Fiennes has to somehow in the voters' minds drop out of contention. And I don't see that happening. So, but look, Tom Hardy gets nominated instead of, let's say, Eddie Redmayne. If Tom Hardy gets nominated instead of, say, Timothy Spall, which that won't happen. But if it did, I wouldn't complain because, like I said, I think his performance in Locke is the best we've ever seen in his career. But I just don't think it cracks the top 5 this year. That's just my opinion about that. Let's see how it all shakes out. All right, let's move on to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Corey Brown, who writes, "Hey guys, huge fan of all of you, and I've been watching every day for the last 2 years." Well, thank you so much, Corey. My question is, with you and the Schmoes Know people so close these days, do you think you could get all together one day and either do a joint podcast or another 24-hour live marathon together? Thanks, and keep bringing on the filthy. Well, thanks a lot for the question. I love the Schmoes Knows guys. The Schmoes guys are great. I love them. I loved them so much, I actually hired them. That's how much I love those guys. And for those of you who don't know, what we're talking about, you should check out Schmoes. They have a YouTube channel. Go check them out. They put out some great stuff. You see them on AMC Movie Talk. You should check them out with their other stuff as well. They're great. But will we do stuff with Schmoes? I want to be careful how I answer this. No, you won't see AMC Movie Talk do stuff with Schmoes Know. Now, the Schmoes Know comprise of, obviously, Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. Christian Harloff has now been working with AMC for the past 5 or 6 months. And we just announced last week, in the past week or two, that Mark Ellis has now also joined the staff and the crew of AMC Movie News. So, will we do things with Schmoes Know? The literal answer to that is no, because we don't have the schmoes working with us at AMC. We have Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. I remember when we were first talking about, them joining and things like that, one of the things that I communicated to the guys, I said, let's be clear. I'm not interested in having the schmoes know guys on AMC Movie Talk. What I'm interested in is the incredibly talented Christian Harloff, and what I'm interested in is the amazingly talented Mark Ellis. That's what I'm interested in. And what I think you guys can come and be a part of this. And they understood that and they wanted that and all that kind of stuff. So when you see Mark and Christian on AMC, they're not the schmoes guys, although they clearly are schmoes guys, especially when you go watch their programming. But on AMC programs, they're not the schmoes guys. They're Christian Harloff and they're Mark Ellis, who work for AMC. So will we be doing stuff with schmoes? The answer to that question is no. But will you see an awful lot of Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis? Absolutely. We just arranged a new, I just hired both of them. Not only did I hire Christian, but we've upped what he's going to be doing. And we also hired Mark on that same level. You are going to be seeing both Mark and Christian, sometimes together, usually separate, but you're going to see them doing a lot of AMC Movie News programming starting this month. Especially in January, when we go full-fledged into phase 3 of AMC Movie News, you're going to see a lot of them. So not only on AMC Movie Talk, but also on other shows as well that we're going to be doing, you're going to see a lot of the guys there. So while you will not see AMC Movie News doing, a joint thing with the schmoes per se, you will be seeing a lot of Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis on the show. And I got to tell you, I love both these guys. I think both these guys are great. And one of the things I'm proudest of at AMC Movie News is this incredible team we have. When you run down the list of who we have here, Amy Rose Eisenbach is second to none for what she is my right hand. She is second in command of AMC Movie News. She is spectacular. I know I can rely on her, depend on her. She's got a great mind. She works incredibly hard. Her knowledge level is deep. She's worked in the studio system. She's worked as a journalist. She's just amazing. We're so lucky to have Amy Rose Eisenbach. We've got the mind-blowing Dennis Zen, who is simply the best in the world at what he does. When it comes to the online movie space, understanding production, that balance, I don't think there's anybody else on the planet. And I'm not using hyperbole here either. I don't think there's anybody else on the planet who brings the mixture that Dennis Zen brings of being our production manager. He is an editor and a shooter and understands everything about production. And yet at the same time, he's a film school graduate. He has a deep understanding of film. He ran his own very successful YouTube channel. He understands the online marketplace. All that put into one, amazing. So you got Amy Rose, you got Dennis, you got John Schnepp, who's just one of the most entertaining guys on the internet in our space right now. We've got incredibly gifted, intelligent people like Miri Jetikin, who I was really excited to get, Alicia Malone, who I was really excited to get. I'm trying to think if I'm leaving anybody off the list. We have fantastic hosts. We have fantastic support at AMC. If I'm the Steve Jobs of AMC Movie News, there's a guy at AMC whose name is Justin Gardner. If I'm the Steve Jobs of AMC Movie News, he's the Wozniak. He's Woz. He's the guy who recruited me. He's the guy who brought me in. He's the guy who at AMC had the first vision for that company, thinking this company can do something a little bit different. We can do something kind of special in the online space that nobody else in our market is doing. And he's the guy who had that vision. And did the smartest thing in the world by coming out and recruiting me. Anyway, and now you add on top of that Christian Harloff, Mark Ellis, funny, engaging, entertaining, and most importantly, knowledgeable about film. I'm telling you, guys, I am thrilled with the lineup that we have and the talent roster we have on AMC Movie News, that they give us the tools and the gifts that we need to do all these other different shows we're going to be doing. I'm so excited about these guys' involvement moving forward, and I can't wait for you guys to see what they're going to be doing with us. So I hope that answers your question. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today is Lawrence Gordon, who writes, "Hi, AMC, another regular viewer here. I love your shows." Well, thank you so much, Lawrence. "I want to talk about Tim Blake Nelson's casting in the Fantastic Four movie as the Mole Man. I was wondering, does this mean the Hulk franchise is officially done? Is he going to be recast as well? What does this mean for the future of the Hulk movie franchise? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Lawrence. Honestly, it means nothing to the Hulk movie franchise. Now, for a lot of you who remember, in the last Hulk film, at the end of the film, you know, Timothy Blake Nelson sitting there and that stuff drips on him, and all of a sudden you see his head start to expand and he smiles, and you know he's becoming the leader. But it's not like that was just because you see him becoming something, that doesn't mean the story of the Hulk had to follow it at all, or that the Marvel Cinematic Universe had to follow it. For all we know, he died 10 seconds later. For all we know, after the camera was on him and we saw his brain start to grow and him smiling, after the camera went away, 5 seconds later he goes, and dies from what was happening to him. Or he just got arrested and brought into prison as well, or anything like that. But they never set it up in any sort of way that it becomes vital now that the next stage of any kind of Hulk story has to follow this character. Not at all. Now, the fact, but it left open the possibility that we could see him back in any potential future Hulk films. But even though, you know, Chris Evans was in the Fantastic Four and then came into Avengers, you know, he went from Fox over to Avengers at Marvel. Even though that's happened before and there's precedence, I don't think you're going to see that happen much these days. And now that Timothy Blake Nelson is playing Harvey Elder, aka Mole Man, and we don't know if we're going to see him as Mole Man in the new Fantastic Four. He might just be Dr. Elder, for all we know. Because he's there, I doubt we're going to see him pursued in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not to mention, you know, at the recent Marvel event, they just announced, you know, all their films all the way up to 2020. And none of them include a Hulk film. They don't have any plans for a standalone Hulk film. So they really don't have the need for the leader. So are we going to see the leader again? I doubt it. And are we going to see a continued Hulk franchise? Not for a lot of years. But it's not because they don't have Timothy Blake Nelson. Because you're asking your question very specifically. You know, since he's off doing Fantastic Four now, does that mean no more Hulk franchise? No, not at all. I believe those two things are totally disconnected. They could continue doing Hulk movies right now completely without Timothy Blake Nelson, without batting an eye. It's not a problem. But it just so happens that he's not coming back because now he's Dr. Elder Mole Man. And they don't have plans to do the Hulk anyway. So the two are completely unrelated issues. All right. It is time for the final question today. And the final question today comes from Jorge, who writes, "Hey, AMC Movie Crew. Love the show. Big fan since I stumbled upon you back since an accidental search for the phrase, 'Bring on the Filthy.' Don't ask." How can I not ask? What on earth were you searching the internet for Bring on the Filthy for? Anyway, I wanted to ask you regarding the whopping 69% of approval for Interstellar has on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm really surprised at the mixed reception it's been getting. It's clear that at this early point, the number might change, but if anything, this seems to point out that it'll receive mixed to positive reviews. Are you surprised at all by this? And for those of you who have seen it, do you agree? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Jorge. And actually, yeah, this is actually what was brought up on AMC Movie Talk earlier this week as well, is the surprising, compared to expectations, the low rating that Interstellar is getting. I think a lot of us were expecting to see 91, 92, 95%, 89 at the lowest. And then it came out, and I think it was like 68. Then it went up to 70, dropped down to 69. I believe the last time I looked, I believe it had climbed up to 73. All right, well, let's start with this. Number one, and I think people lose sight of this. Forget expectations for a second. 73 on Rotten Tomatoes, meaning out of all the film critics in the world, 73% gave it a positive review. 27% didn't, but clearly the critics who gave it a positive review far outnumber the ones who gave it a negative review. A 73 is a good score. Like there's this mentality out there that unless it's 90 plus, that doesn't mean the movie's good. It's a 73. That's a good score. So let's not hit panic buttons over a 73. That's a pretty... Now, if it was 59, 62, Should a little bit worried? Maybe. But 73, let's not lose sight, is a good score. Would we have preferred as film fans to see a 91? Sure, absolutely. But let's not lose sight that a 73 is a good score. The vast majority of filmmakers in the world today will never make a film that gets as high as a 73 on Rotten Tomatoes. Keep that in perspective. The vast majority of film directors out there today will either, number one, never get a movie made, and even if they did, it's highly unlikely they'll make a movie that reaches as high as 73%. So let's keep in mind that that's still a pretty damn good number, all right? Okay, but now on the flip side of that coin, I gotta tell you, I've not seen the film yet. I let Amy Rose and a couple of the other people go see it instead of me. They went instead. Like, we get invitations to go to see these films, but we don't get to send everybody. So a lot of the times, I let the other staff go and see these movies and let them cover those junkets. And Interstellar was one that Amy Rose really wanted to do. And hey, she's the boss. So I said, go ahead. You know, you're in charge here. Go for it. So I let her off to go do that. So I haven't seen it myself. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm really looking forward to it this week. The only really surprising thing to me is that, traditionally speaking, film critics really like to kiss Christopher Nolan's butt. I use the term on Twitter, lick his boots. Traditionally speaking, film critics really like to suck up to Christopher Nolan. And when I first saw that 69 number, it kind of shocked me, because I remember thinking, this is coming from a big collection of people that generally like to lick Christopher Nolan's boots. And see, the number 73 doesn't concern me. What might concern me a little bit is that, traditionally speaking, film critics suck up to Christopher Nolan. And if this group of people who traditionally suck up to Christopher Nolan are giving the film a 73, maybe there's a little bit of a cause for concern. Now, I've read a number of full reviews about Interstellar, because I wanted to see, okay, the critics who are giving it a negative review, what is it they are saying specifically? And I got to admit that some of the things they're bringing up, if I watch the film and find out that it's true, I'm going to be concerned about some of those elements as well. But I'm not going to jump to any conclusions until I see the film myself. So, would I be concerned? Would it hurt my enthusiasm if it was like a 58%? Probably, I got to be honest. But honestly, to me, 73 is a high enough number that if you are like me and you're really looking forward to seeing Interstellar, I believe you should look at that number and go, okay, so the odds are, the vast probability is I'm going to like this movie. The 73, I think, is a number that shouldn't at all dissuade you from feeling enthused about the movie. So that's my answer to that. Anyway, guys, that'll do it for this installment of AMC Mailbag. Thanks so much for joining me today. And once again, if you're watching this on Saturday, I'm sorry that I got up online a little bit later than normal. Like I said, I wanted to see that Fast and Furious trailer and get everything ready for you. But listen, once again, guys, if you would like to see your question on AMC Mailbag or AMC Movie Talk, send in your questions to this email address you see here, amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Email them all in 24/7. Maybe see your question on AMC Mailbag or AMC Mail Talk during the week. And listen, don't forget to, lots of great movies playing in AMC theaters right now. Head on over right now to www.amctheaters.com for obviously all your theater, your showtime, and of course, your movie ticket information. And don't forget, guys, if you want to follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, whatever, just follow me at John Campea. You can find me there. I often make a lot of announcements, whatever, way ahead of time on my social media channels, so you may want to follow me there. And that'll do it for me for today, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll be back again tomorrow for AMC Mailbag for our Sunday edition. Make sure you join me then. So until that time, my name's John Campea for AMC Movie Talk. And until then, bye-bye.